Hey y'all, welcome back to Digital Charcuterie. I'm Andrew Fantasia, and it's time for another of our Marvel United deep dives. But before we deep dive into Marvel United, how about we deep dive into this? Oops, I have it backwards. Or do I? Maybe I meant to do it all along. See this book I'm holding? See these books I'm holding? This is We Were Wizards, the fantasy novel series that I wrote. And I'm showing you the back first so that maybe you can freeze frame and take a look for yourself at what you might expect to see inside. Plus, there's a picture of me on the back as proof that I wrote them. Here comes the front. Ready? Boom. A boom. Actually, I should have it this way, left to right, because the purple one comes first. But there you go. We Were Wizards. It's available on Amazon right now in 3 different formats. Get this while it's hot. Spoilers, it'll always be hot. And help support an up-and-coming fantasy author. Well, I hope you brought your extra durable back brace with you today, because the box we are deep diving into is one of the heaviest, but not the heaviest, boxes this giant, crazy, wonderful game has given us. We are talking about Mutant Promos, the side characters of the mutant universe. I mean, you've got your Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters, but we're taking a step further up across the border into Canada for Alpha Flight and X Factor and whatever the hell Dupe is supposed to be. It's all happening here. It's all crammed inside this one giant box of toys. So let's go to the table right now, take a deep dive, find out what's in store for you. Here it is, this absolute monolith of a box. And hey, you want to hear a gamer horror story? I double checked this table twice just now and wiped it off before I put this box on here. And then as I went to move the box, I realized it was stuck on something, and there was a giant spot of sticky honey or something on the table that I had somehow completely missed. And thankfully it didn't damage the box in any way, but that, whoa, that got my pulse racing for a second, because I usually like to keep these in as pristine condition as I can. So crisis averted, but my friends, the moral of that story is double checking the table before you put gaming components on it isn't enough. Please triple check next time. Don't make the same mistake I did. Wow. All right, so with that out of the way, with my pulse returning to a normal speed, here we have the X-Men promo box. All the stretch goals. I believe the official name for this thing is the Mutant Promos, but I will alternately call it that and stretch goal box throughout this whole thing. I don't even know what I'll call this video, but it'll be one of those two things. But this is, as you can see, a gigantic box. So if you're buying this on the aftermarket, it is definitely going to set you back dollar-wise. So I want to make sure you know exactly what you're getting and if it's worth it. So first of all, if we, oh, it's big and it's heavy. And hey, there's a whole bunch of characters on the side too, because artwork is beautiful in this game. But if we flip her over to the back side, which has just recently been wiped down to avoid any catastrophes. Yeah, thankfully it's all back to its normal condition. No more stickiness. Ugh. You can just see there's no text or anything unless you count all this stuff. But there's just a good old gallery of what you can get in the box. And I don't know about you guys, but this reminds me of in the 90s when you used to buy action figures, and it would show you at the back, collect them all the figures that you don't have. And that's sort of what kickstarted my love for United, because that whole process as a child of getting a Spider-Man toy and then flipping it over to the back and seeing, oh my God, all the villains are there. You mean I could get the whole set if I wanted? But of course, that was an expensive endeavor and that never happened. And now here we are 30 years later, and I'm actually able to have all of these characters. And that's what one of the many things about United that makes me so happy is the idea that finally my childhood dream of having all of the Marvel characters at my beck and call has come true. So I have this game to thank for that. And man, what a beautiful lineup that is. But I think we have seen enough of that picture. It's now time to crack this open. Now, a word of warning. You all might be aware by now that I store things in kind of a haphazard way, and that mostly pertains to these stretch goal boxes. I take as many things out of these boxes as I can to make room in them, because these ones don't give you any room. Once you've sleeved cards, you're out of luck. They give you just enough room to hold all the things that it comes with. But as soon as you try sleeving anything in these boxes, you get overflow. And as we all know, as Marvel United players, overflow is always bad. So whenever I take stuff out and put it into different boxes, it's always being taken out of these big, chunky stretch gold boxes. So there are characters that come in this box that you will not see in this video. At least you won't see their cards. You'll see their minis, and I'll bring it up every time one of them comes up. But I just wanted to make everybody aware, some of the cards that should be in here are not in here, and you've seen them in other videos already. But you take out this thing, and this is just a big cardboard container to hold all of the miniatures. And inside, you will find a cardboard token punch out. So I've punched out only the ones that I've necessarily used, and sometimes what I like to do is just put them back in if I've used them, like these. So all these big ones here belong to Mojo. I should probably show you what those look like. Okay, so I just went and grabbed them so I could show you. And hey, remember when I said that these all belong to Mojo? Well, guess what? I lied. Some of them do, some of them don't. So these are all the Mojo ones, and they have the beautiful TV color pattern on the front, because that is how TV used to roll, kids. Oh boy, I could talk for days about the TV color pattern. I love that thing. And then on the back, there are different symbols. Whoa! So these represent hostages that Mojo has taken, and once you rescue one, you get to perform the thing that's on the back. So that's part of Mojo's thing. And then the other big hexagonal things that fit in here are these, and they belong to Sauron, the pterodactyl man. And these are tokens that you give to people, to heroes that Sauron hypnotizes. So that's what those are. There are 3 of these, but I forgot to grab the third one, and 5 of these Mojo hostages. And I don't mean to be tossing things around. I'm just the Butterfingers today. All right, and then also you will get some of these stun tokens. These are bombs dropped by Boom Boom. And then these are the dupe tokens for Multiple Man. So any tokens that characters in here might need, they got you covered. Then underneath here, you're going to find a giant stack of wonderful villain dashboards. And that is a thick stack of dashboards. This always used to just make me happy every time I opened this box and I saw this giant stack of villain dashboards, because they are my favorite components in Marvel United. When Multiverse came along and the stack of dashboards in that stretch goal box was even bigger, it was like, oh, it was like I'd gone to heaven. So this is a look at every villain that I have kept in this box, at least. So you got the dashboard for Arcade, Avalanche, and the Brood Queen. It's funny, she never moves. So you have this big, beautiful mini of her, but she never moves around the board. It's kind of, it goes against your instincts. You want to move her, but she doesn't move. Callisto, who is a big pain in the butt. She is very hard. Deathbird and Emma Frost. And who else is in here? Lady Deathstrike. So classic X-Men villains. Legion, who I knew nothing about until this game came out and taught me about him. Marrow, one of the Morlocks. Mastermind, who has his hands in his pockets because he thinks he's cooler than you. Omega Red, one of the last United villains I ever got to face. And Onslaught, big 90s character, Onslaught. And Sauron, who is my best friend Tiago. That's his favorite X-Men villain, if I remember right. And if I'm wrong about that, Tiago, I apologize. I apologize for spreading lies about you. Silver Samurai. And that's it. That's all the ones that I have kept in here. And if you want to just take a quick peek at the back to see what they're like. Some of them are a little less complicated, right? Mastermind's a little more complex there. He's got a special setup. So does Marrow. Legion's very complicated. Deathstrike has a special setup. So does Deathbird. So does Brood Queen. She's tricky. And he's pretty simple. And he's very tricky as well. Arcade, I haven't faced him in a while, but back when I first got this game, his name came up a lot, and I ended up facing him. And man, is he ever difficult. His whole thing with his threats, oh, you have to clear the threat in one go, pretty much. Otherwise, he's going to reset everything. So underneath here, we've got a giant six-well deep thing of cards, which we'll take a look at now. And we'll start, I guess we'll go in alphabetical order. That's the best way to do it. We'll start with this well here. And yes, when you receive the game, every character card is placed in here in alphabetical order, just to make it easier for you. And I keep it the same. No sense trying to fix what ain't broken. So here's a giant stack of cards. There's Kitty Pryde, who are you going to find in here? Havoc with his boring costume. My Canadian buddy here, Guardian, or as Meeple Monkey calls him, Captain Generic, and I think that's a much better name for him. Firestar and Phantom X. Phantom X, that's right, that's his name. Emma Frost and Dupe and Boom Boom and Blink. So we will flip these over and give you a taste of what it's like to look at their cards. As always, you're getting beautiful colored cards. Blink is bright bubblegum pink, and she plays well with Boom Boom. I think they're friends because their cards go together, but just the whole pink and green motif, I love it. And Boom Boom has the same thing going on. She's just sort of the opposite palette swap. So maybe they're not friends in the comics. Maybe they've never even met in the comics, but man, what a great team they would be. Blink and Boom Boom. I love it. They just go together. Peanut butter and jelly. Awesome. Boom Boom, one of many characters in this box that I learned about through Marvel United. The more off the beaten path X-Men characters I had no knowledge of. That really was outside of my Marvel wheelhouse. So Boom Boom, first learned about in this game. Same with Dupe. No idea Dupe existed. I saw this and I'm like, wait, Slimer is part of Marvel now? What's happening? But no, Dupe is apparently a mutant, and I couldn't tell you what he's all about, but he's basically just Slimer, and I'm okay with that. I haven't drawn his name in a while either. But yeah, I learned about him through United. Now, Emma Frost I knew about because she is a classic X-Men character. So much so that it's kind of shocking that she never really played a huge part in the cartoons. And the movies, they really haven't done much with her in the movies, and you'd think they would have. That one little time when January Jones showed up and played her was fine, I guess, but yeah, they really could have played more with her. And don't be surprised if MCU utilizes her in a much bigger way. Phantom X, another character I learned about through Marvel United. I like his costume. He's like a trench coat ninja, which would also be a great superhero name. So that's one stack of heroes that you're going to find. And another stack here. Firestar, who used to be roommates with Iceman and Spider-Man back in the 80s. And Firestar has this very unique thing that I think is a printer error, because I've never seen a reason for why this is, but some of her cards are randomly orange. Right? Just any of the cards with special abilities just randomly end up being orange instead of yellow. I don't know if that's ever been confirmed to be an error or to be specifically on purpose, but I just think it's a fun little thing that makes her very unique in Marvel United. And then we have Guardian, the leader of Alpha Flight, the Canadian mutant team, and their presence is what really sold this box for me, was the idea of, wow, I get to play as individual members of Alpha Flight? That is too cool. And here comes Havoc with his classic vanilla-looking costume, which is admittedly way less cool than what we end up with. And at last, Kitty Pryde and Lockheed the Dragon, who comes with her. And this is a character that a lot of X-Men fans say is their gateway into X-Men. For me, it was Jubilee, but they basically serve the same purpose at the end of the day. Let's grab the next stack now. Oh, these are so big. I'll just replace that there. So just to save time, let's not worry about the back so much. But in this corner, you will have Legion. Legion is very cool looking cards, and he has a different personality on every card, which is pretty awesome. Very complex X-Men character. And I think he had his own show, and I've never seen it, but I feel like that show would be really, really acting tour de force on the part of whoever played Legion. And then there is Magic. She is Colossus's sister. And she has a cool haircut. I like her hair. And I think Anya Taylor-Joy played her in the movie. But I still have not seen that movie. And then there's Marrow, the Morlock, who's got bones coming out of her. And we saw kind of a version of this character in X-Men 3, but she's definitely not as well represented in that movie. And Mirage. Mirage has a bow and arrow. Very cool looking cards. She's a character that does not come up much for me. I haven't played as her in a while either. And after Mirage, Multiple Man, who spreads his duplicates all around. Very, very fun guy. Jamie Madrox. And he was a member of the X Factor. And also represented in X-Men 3. Slightly better than Marrow was. And then here in another stack, we've got the oft-requested Nightcrawler, who during the campaign was sorely lacking until, bamf, he appeared inside the box. And we saw a similar thing in DC with Green Arrow. Everybody was like, where's Green Arrow? And it's like, he's coming, chill. And sure enough, he showed up. And that was Nightcrawler's deal. The Incredible Nightcrawler. He is a cool X-Man. Very well represented in the X-Men movies. They did a perfect job with him. And Northstar, the Canadian fella who is part of Alpha Flight. There he is. And he's got a sister who we don't see till season 3. Now, this is one that we have to stop and sort of put an asterisk on because Old Man Logan comes separately. He was the all-in bonus for the entire X-Men campaign. And I did not go all in on the X-Men campaign, though in retrospect I wish I had. I've managed to find him separately at my local game store. He was about $20 because I guess he's a rare sort of collectible. But he's a cool character. You got a cool old man version of Logan. And he's not the only one in this box who fits in that same mold. So we'll talk about that when we get to it. But if you buy this at retail, you will not have Old Man Logan inside unless you get him separately and add him after the fact. And then Phoenix, who for the longest time I just thought was Jean Grey. But no, this is a different Phoenix. This is, I think, Rachel Summers. And man, her deck is ridiculously powerful. I really should get her to go up against Vulture and Green Goblin because I think I'd have a chance. Though just recently, I think last week, I finally, for the first time ever, managed to beat the Vulture. And man, what a benchmark day that was for me. I can't remember who I used to fight him. I think it was Ghost Spider and, oh boy, I can't remember who else was in there. But it worked out really, really well for me. So let's get the next batch of hero cards out of that well. Okay, in this batch of cards, we have Pixie, who I believe is the Meeple Monkey's daughter's favorite character. She always wants to play as Pixie, so I bet he was thrilled when more characters came out and he got to have a different teammate for a change. And Polaris, who looks fantastic. A little taste of what it might look like when we see, hopefully we get to see her, Fire from DC Comics. Because same look, very statuesque woman with long flowing green hair. Except I hope that Fire's miniature is all like Human Torch, just all translucent green. Because that would be pretty sweet. And there is Puck, my favorite member of the Alpha Flight. I remember buying Puck's trading card with my father way back when I was little, because Dad saw the card and he's like, wow, that guy looks awesome. His name's Puck. And on the card, Puck was actually upside down, because he does that a lot. So Dad was really taken. Yeah, the card looked a lot like that, except he was wearing red and white. And Dad was really taken with it. And he's like, oh, wow, we need to get this card. But Puck is great. And he's got a little mustache. And then after Puck is Sasquatch, another member of the Canada crew. He's a big, giant Sasquatch man. I would love to hang out with these guys and just talk about maple syrup all day. Because that is the only cliche Canadian thing that really applies to me, is I do love me some maple syrup. I don't love hockey. I don't love Tim Hortons. I don't say A. And I can't speak French all that well. But man, do I love a good maple syrup. But then again, who doesn't? And then Snowbird, who might be, in terms of the cards in this game, the best Alpha Flight character, because her cards are really, really useful. I feel like every time I bust out Snowbird, I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to be able to take down the bad guys without much of an issue. And the final stack, or part of that stack anyway, is the second character who does not come in this box unless you buy her separately, and that is Storm Mohawk. So she was a bonus character that you could get, I think if you ordered the Horsemen of Apocalypse. I think that's where she came. And that's one of the 2 expansions that I never ended up getting. So I couldn't get Storm Mohawk until I found her in a board game shop. Same as Old Man Logan. Beautiful art on Storm. And this is the younger Storm too. Just great stuff. And then there's Strong Guy, who to me, I always look to him as the symbol of why I love Marvel United, or rather why I love playing Marvel United the way that I play, the random way that I play. Because I had a buddy over a couple months ago, and I was like, do you want to pick or do you want to do it randomly like I do? And he's like, sure, we'll do it randomly. And I forget who I ended up getting, but I'm pretty sure he ended up getting Strong Guy. And I use that as, I hold that up as my example of why the random thing works so well for me, because normally if people come over and they find out I have a Marvel game, they're like, well, let me play as Wolverine, let me play as Spider-Man, let me play as Captain America. And those characters are all great, but nobody is ever going to walk through my door and say, hey, Andrew, can I play a Strong Guy? So the fact that the randomization lets people experiment with these characters that they never would have chosen otherwise is what makes this beautiful to me, is what makes this certain way that I play so much fun, because it's a box of chocolates every time. Even though I know who all the characters are now, I'm still surprised every time I play, because I'm like, ooh, I wonder whose name I'm going to draw. And if someone comes over and does it my way, you know, I'm not going to end up with the same game every time, or they're like, let me be Captain America, let me be Iron Man. Because, hey, guess what? You drew Storm Mohawk. So that's who you ended up playing as, and I think that's just beautiful. Sunfire is next, and he popped up in the cartoon a lot of times. I remember Sunfire showing up. He's got a big starfish thing on his face. His cards are very fun, and I really like Sunspots cards. And this guy became a thing in X-Men 97. Remember, he was Jubilee's buddy, her new boyfriend. And man, those are great cards. Sunspot is he the only one in this stack that I learned about him through Marvel United as well. Never knew he was a thing. Actually, same with Pixie. I love it. I love learning about characters in DC United. I did not know about Cyclone. I tend to know a lot of DC characters because I've spent more time in that world in the comics at least, but it was a nice treat to learn about Cyclone because I had never seen her before. And now, the last batch of heroes in this box. We have Warlock, who was a great character in the cartoon. He was very fun. Just a super nice alien who just wanted to save the world from his techno-organic virus thing that was spreading. Having him in here was just another great thing. Like, wow, nobody would ever come over and say, I'll be Warlock. But that's great because now the option is there. And it's fantastic. Warpath, who is a classic X-Men character. And that art of him is superb. Great Warpath art. And after Warpath is Weapon X. Probably my least favorite of the 4 Wolverines we got. Just because I guess it's just the most boring looking one. That helmet is nutso. It's bananas. Look at him. But yeah, I think 4 Wolverines in one campaign was kind of overkill. And I think that if the X-Men campaign had a weakness, it was just a lot of these repeats when there were other mutants that could have been shown. But honestly, it could have been way worse. That's fine. And then X-23, the last hero in the box, alphabetically. And she is pretty cool as well. She's Wolverine's daughter. And her name is Laura. And then we get to the villains. And the villains here, we've got Arcade starting off. And he has a lot of threats. Arcade, when you get him, you're going to end up with, let's see, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 threats. So twice what you normally would, because his threats all shuffle around and reset every time. Arcade, and I think he bams on every card. Yeah. So Arcade is a huge pain. Not recommended for beginner players. Very, very difficult. Avalanche is much simpler, but he's still pretty tough. And I love how they took a character who was just sort of, he's really henchman material, but they gave him his own villain deck. And that's something that Marvel United does that kind of takes some getting used to, but I have grown to love it, because they did it with Bullseye in Season 1 and with Crossbones in Season 3, and now they've done it with Avalanche. But it's just a great way to get more villain variety in the game. And the Brood Queen is terrifying and straight out of an H.R. Giger nightmare. But she doesn't move. And the next block of villains you are going to get comes here in the form of Marrow. And Marrow's got some Morlock minions, some Morlock henchmen there, including Caliban and Mask. So some great original art there. I'm sorry, I said Marrow. It's Callisto, but Marrow is her one of her henchmen. But Callisto is the definitive leader of the Morlocks. Marrow is just kind of like her lieutenant. And she's slippery, man. Trying to get a hold of her, she is tough. Deathbird, the sister of Lalandra, and we get our first taste of Vulcan, a very difficult henchman. Does a lot of damage. And that's Deathbird. And then here we have Emma Frost's henchmen, who are all illusory henchmen, and her villain deck in there. And then here we have, these guys are fun. I forget what they're called, the Ravagers or something, but they work for Lady Deathstrike. And you got Pretty Boy, you got Skullbuster, and then my favorite, Bonebreaker. Look at this. He has no legs. He's like a centaur tank. That's so much fun. We got to see him in a movie. I've seen an action figure of him that was really, really cool, and I was tempted to buy it, but I'm like, no, Andrew, save your money. But what a great looking character. And then over here we have Legion, and his cards are very, very different and complicated because he has all these different personalities. So when you fight Legion, you're really doing a whole different game. Like, see, they're different colors too. Legion's deck is massive because you're dealing with, I think, 6 different people. And then finally, the last stack of cards in this gigantic box. This is definitely going to be our longest deep dive. There's Marrow. All of Marrow's threats and Marrow's master plan cards. And then after that, you have Mastermind, who Mastermind plays around with your brain, and you have to try to read his mind. He has a very unique battle. Very fun. And Omega Red. All right. So that's going to be in here. And finally, we've reached the end of the cards. There's Onslaught, who looks like giant evil Magneto. And there's Sauron. Great big pterodactyl with purple pants. He could be friends with the Lizard. They have the same fashion sense. And Silver Samurai, which is a very, very fun battle. One of the most fun villain battles in this box. But yeah, that's what you're looking at. And I know I kind of flipped through those really quickly because I want to kind of get a move on here and show you the miniatures. But there you have it. That's what you're looking at card-wise. Now, see if I can do this sitting down. I'm going to show you the miniatures. So as we open this box, we just want to be nice and careful with it and make sure nothing spills out. Okay. So we'll just start from the top and work our way to the bottom. We're not going to go least to most favorite because that would probably take all day. But we'll start up here with Avalanche. Great looking mini. He's got a giant A on his chest just in case we don't know who he is. And he is one of those lesser mutants, so I'm sure a lot of people are like, who the heck are you? And he's got to be like, don't you know me? I'm Avalanche, man. I make earthquakes. I'm kind of a big deal. And very broad-shouldered fellow. But great to have him in here. Just one of those very recognizable, instantly recognizable background X-Men characters. Deathbird with a beautiful miniature. Look at all those feathers. Wow. and she brings the Shi'ar portion of the X-Men world to life. After her is Mastermind, and I love his mini. He's got his hands in his pockets, he's looking all cocky. He's on a set of steps, as if he is just standing on the steps greeting you in his palatial home. And there's a banister behind him too. One of my favorite little details on any United mini is that banister. And he was, if I remember right, the very last character unlocked in this whole campaign. Here is Callisto with her eye patch. She's got a knife because she's kind of a sneaky, stab you in the back kind of lady. Yeah, very underhanded rogue. And she is tough to get a hold of. Her villain battle, she will escape and hide from you every chance she gets. Lady Deathstrike looking very different than she looked in the movie. The movies made her look entirely like somebody else. I don't know what the deal is with this hat that she wears, but she's got adamantium nails. So Wolverine is walking around with 6 claws. She's walking around with 10 of them, and she's not putting them to heroic use. Look, she's slicing stuff up on her base right there. Very cool. And here we have the Shadow King, our first character who we can point out I don't have in this box anymore because I put him in the Black Panther box. But if you purchase this box, you will get Shadow King. And he has a fez. When's the last time you had a miniature in a board game where a character was wearing a fez? I'll tell you when. Probably never. Maybe like Arkham Horror or something. I think there was a guy in Arkham Horror with a fez. But what a great looking mini. There is Silver Samurai wielding his katana. Very cool. And he's standing on like a pagoda roof. Great stuff. You will also get Omega Red in this box, and he is lashing out with those tendrils, which I believe are made out of... are they adamantium or are they something else? I feel like they're made of something other than adamantium, but I could be wrong. But very cool looking mini. And another classic X-Men villain. Arcade, who never showed up in the cartoons, so I knew he existed when I was younger, but I don't know how. He might have been from the trading cards. That might be it. But look at that. Look how cool that is. He's on a top. He's spinning around on a giant top, so imagine him just going like... I think if that was me, I would just start vomiting right away. But he's got his top hat in his hand. Definitely my favorite top hat in any board game since Monopoly, right there. He's got this big scepter, this rod in his hand, which makes me happy because there's a villain in one of my fantasy books who carries a rod just like that. And he's got a giant bow tie. So one of the coolest villain minis in this box, even though the fight with him is really grating, and yeah, you want to tear him to pieces when it's over. And here is Sauron, and wow, they went above and beyond on Sauron. He looks terrifying. He almost doesn't look chibi, I guess, because he's, there's very few human proportions in his head. He's like, you could take this figure and put it in a non-chibi, like a game like Descent or something, and I feel like it would work, like just as a monster that you encounter in a dungeon. His tail is made of a different plastic so that it doesn't snap, as are his wings. But he still feels kind of delicate, and I like being careful with all these guys. But wow, isn't that great? Sauron looks magnificent. And then we have the trio that is the Brotherhood of Mutants, Pyro, Toad, and Blob. And I have taken their cards out and put them in the X-Men core box. So you didn't see them here, but you will get them if you get this box. Pyro, Toad, and Blob. And look at that. That's great. Our first special mini of the box, because he's got that translucent flame. Toad is magnificent because he's standing on that Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters sign. See if I can make that show up better. And his long, long tongue. Toad is so much fun. You know what happens to a toad that gets struck by lightning? No! And you'll never find out. Don't worry, because I'm not going to let lightning anywhere near this box. And there is Blob. He's a big old boy. Look at that belly. And hefty, too. That's a hefty, heavy little miniature. But he's classic to me. He's quintessential 90s cartoon X-Men fun. And those three go together as the Brotherhood of Mutants, as I said, which I have put in another box. But there's a great homebrew. I can't remember who did it. I want to give credit where it's due, but forgive me. It might have been Kanji. It might have been Nelly Nell. But somebody out there did a great homebrew where, because these are great X-Men villains, these three guys, and they do usually work together in the cartoon. But this person made a homebrew where you can play each of them separately. And I thought that was beautiful, just adding bang for your buck, especially the way I play. Because on my list of villains, instead of just having one entry that said Brotherhood of Mutants, I could have 4. I could have Brotherhood of Mutants, I could have Blob, and Pyro, and Toad. So that is fantastic. I still have to print those cards out for Toad because I haven't printed his, but the other ones I have, and they're great. And Mojo. Oh, he's one of my favorites from back in the day. So much fun. I think they based his character off one of the producers at Fox. So he's the typical sleazy TV producer. And man, this guy, I've been asked, or rather I've talked about this on, I have a podcast with my friend Ryan where we talk about the MCU. It's called Infinity Rewatch, and we do that on the Rebel Scum Podcast Network. And one of the things we talked about is if we could take one character who has not been in the MCU yet, and we could write their movie or write their show or whatever and put them in the MCU, I chose Mojo. I would want to do a Mojo thing, maybe a Disney Plus show, because he's a TV guy, so that kind of fits. Even though I prefer movies way more, I think the Disney Plus shows are kind of defeating the purpose of storytelling in a way. But this is just a beautiful miniature for an absolutely hilarious character who doesn't get enough love. Look at that. And he's another one, like the Brood Queen, who is next, where you got this great mini, but he never moves. He stays in the same spot the whole time, which is kind of a shame. I wish he moved around more because I want an excuse to, clap this miniature around the board. And the way he talks is just magnificent. Baby, I got a show for you. Who wants to see the X-Men show? I got a show where Jean Grey is trapped inside a giant bucket of liquid nitrogen. Woo! Oh, I love this guy. Okay, let me make sure I put him back in the right way. Otherwise, he's going to be very, very angry with me. The Brood Queen. Another big, hulking miniature. Not oversized like the Sentinels, but, for comparison, here is Mastermind next to the Brood Queen. So she's not oversized, but this kind of gives us an idea of what it's going to be like when we see Stargirl and Stripe in DC, because Stripe is pretty big, but he's not giant like Goliath. So that's a good comparison to note. And she is terrifying, even though she doesn't move on the board. Derivative of aliens? Sure, but still fun. Speaking of hulking characters, he's so heavy, is Onslaught, who was a 90s staple, even though the behind-the-scenes stuff about the creation of Onslaught was kind of a hot mess. And on the back, he's got this thick carapace, like a beetle almost, or one of those, what are those things called? Those things in the sand that are just like a shell with like a big stinger thing coming out of it. They called like a sand crab or something. That's what that reminds me of. But man, he's huge. Absolutely huge. I think he's the first villain I ever fought in Marvel United. And finally, Dark Phoenix. And look at that miniature. When this was announced on the Kickstarter back in the day, I'm sure fans went nuts. Look at that. You have that Phoenix Force just engulfing the back of her in flames. And she is just a force of nature. Very difficult fight, as she should be, because The Dark Phoenix ain't no pushover. All right, so that'll do it for the villains. And now, let's take a look at the anti-heroes. Starting with Legion. Very crazy hairdo. I don't know what the deal is with that hair. Is he constantly sticking his finger in power outlets? What's up with that? His base, though, he is standing on a human brain. A giant human brain. Which is fantastic. Look at those shoulder pads, too. He looks like he's ready for a David Bowie concert. Emma Frost, very quintessential anti-hero for X-Men. She's got these crystals because she is known to be evil and good. And even when she's on the side of good, she's kind of a jerk and she's mean to everybody. Except, I think, Cyclops. I think she hooks up with Cyclops. From what I hear, she's a lot of fun in the comics. And after her is Marrow. And look at that pose on Marrow. She's standing on a sewer grate. I love that. She's got the bones popping. Beautiful. And then probably two of the best minis in this entire box. First, we have Spiral. Now, Spiral's cards are kept in a separate box. They are kept in the X-Force box, but you will get Spiral in here. She's got a hero deck and a villain deck. And man, 4 arms, each arm carrying a sword. What more could you possibly ask for? I love this character. And she was fun in the cartoon as well. And then another of my favorite minis in this box, Namor. Because not only do we get Namor, who just looks cool, not only is he purple, not only is he holding a trident, but his base is translucent water, as if he is just jumping out to greet the surface dwellers with an angry roar. Probably my favorite miniature in this box. Like it would be tough to compete with him. I really think he's my favorite one here. And his cards are also kept in a different box. I keep him in the Black Panther box, but you will get him in here as well. Don't you worry. Next is Magic. She has a great base too. She's standing on this magic portal, which I've always loved. She's popping out of a portal, and she has a sword, and swords are always cool. They got her hair perfect too. That's Magic for you. That is Sunspot. Let's see if I can quicken the pace a little bit so my phone doesn't run out of memory again. And you can easily tell Sunspot on the board because he's got the great bandana and he's flying. And they really captured the flying essence of him. Warlock is a fantastic miniature because of this buzzsaw. Look at that. That's all you need. That's all you need is one giant buzzsaw. And he's got tubes and he's got kind of sideways Legion here. I really wish the Carnage miniature in Season 1 had the whole having his arm turn into axes and saws and things. They kind of rectified that in Season 3. And next up we have Mirage, who's got a magic arrow that doesn't need a string to pull it, I think. I think that's how she works, because look, that arrow is definitely not a real arrow. There's something magical going on there. And then here is Wolfsbane, another character whose cards I took out and put it in the Black Panther box, but Wolfsbane comes in this box, as does a friend of hers who looks very similar. Here is Havoc with his 3-ring circus thing going on his head, and he's screaming to the heavens, and he's very buff. He's been working out. Definitely a cool character. Definitely not the coolest version of the character, but we'll get to that in Season 3, won't we? And Multiple Man. Look at that. That is brilliant. 2 guys on 1 base. No other United Mini like it. And this is Polaris. A little hard to tell when she's unpainted, but her big, beautiful hair gives it away. And she just looks magnificent. I know people who paint are probably looking at me like I'm from Mars. I'm like, how dare you just keep these things unpainted? But I do like the look of them unpainted, I have to say. I do enjoy this blue, red, and purple smorgasbord that they give us. Here's Strong Guy with his little curl of Clark Kent hair and his funky sunglasses. Big dude. And Boom Boom, who also has great sunglasses, and she's throwing a bomb. And she looks terrific as well. She's standing near some pipes. Lots of lovely little details on the bases of these minis. And this is Blink. See, Blink is even next to Boom Boom in the tray. It's like they were meant to be pals. She's got these crystals that she throws to open portals, and they're on her back, and her cape thing is swooshing out. She looks lovely. And Firestar, who is flying with the use of her fire effects, which is very creative. So, so cool. Another really great miniature. Every time they do this, it's just heightens the atmosphere of the miniature. There's Warpath with two very different but very distinctly fun knives. Wait, are they different? I always thought they were different, but now that I'm looking at them, they might be the same knife. You've been lying to me this whole time, Warpath. I thought I knew you. Phantom X with a really awesome dynamic miniature. He's just standing on a busted down door. And I'm sure the door says something, but it's kind of hard to make out. It's just a little grate. But wow, he is cool. And then this here is Feral, who kind of goes hand in hand with Wolfsbane. Very similar looking ladies. And I have also put Feral's cards in the Black Panther box. So her cards were not in here, but they will be for you if you get this. And I find at first it was very hard to distinguish the two of them. And this is the way I tell it. So you have Wolfsbane and you have Feral. Feral's name ends with the letter L, just like the word tail. And Feral has a tail, and Wolfsbane doesn't. So that's how I tell them apart. That's just a fun little mnemonic that I use. All right, that's out of the way. Let's get to the last of the trays here with Kitty Pryde, with this outstanding miniature of Kitty Pryde running through a brick wall. And she's joined by her pal Lockheed. That is so awesome. This must have blown people away during the campaign when they saw this, because this is just something new that hadn't been done before at all. Wow. Speaking of new things, I would have loved to have been there when they announced anti-heroes for the first time, because that must have just been, what a reveal that must have been. If anybody remembers that, and they remember how they felt about that, please let me know in the comments. There's Nightcrawler, the oft-requested, never forgotten Nightcrawler, and they got his BAMF effect on the actual base of his miniature. Superb. And who is this? This is Captain Britain, whose cards I have taken out and put somewhere else, but he belongs in here with his Union Jack all over his costume. So awesome. And he's standing on some rubble. Most of the time they stand on rubble, because that's a place that superheroes are comfortable standing, but normal people aren't. Here's Phoenix. And she's got these buttons, and this is Rachel Summers' Phoenix, I think, not Jean Grey. And there's the Phoenix Force behind her again. Very awesome character, very powerful character, and just terrifying. Like, imagine seeing a woman doing that on the street, just going like, "Whoa." I would pee my pants. And speaking of peeing my pants, here is Dupe, aka Slimer, aka I have no idea what this guy is, but he's taking a picture and telling people to hold that pose. So that's terrific. Truly the condiment king of this box, but I'm never going to complain. Give me all the obscure characters. Like Gwenpool, for example, who I took her cards out of the box too and put it in the Deadpool box. So you will find Gwenpool if you purchase this. And she comes with Jeffrey the Land Shark on her base and a giant bazooka. So much fun. Look at that. And there's a penguin on her back, and she's got a sword back there too. Overkill. That's the name of the game for Gwenpool. And then this is Dagger of Cloak and Dagger fame. And let's just get Cloak too while we're at it. These guys I also took out of this box to put in the other promo box. But you will find Cloak and Dagger's cards in here. And their things kind of almost go together, like she's on the bottom step and he's at the top of the stairs. So they're meant to be seen like that. Isn't that awesome? Yeah, that is cool. And they play together really well, something that we see happening in DC United a lot as well. And here is, I think this is the Meeple Monkey's favorite miniature, or one of them, because he's just vaulting over this wall. This is Longshot. He's throwing knives. Look at that. I think one of the things he used to say in the comics was, "It's been a long day for Longshot." Does he still say that? I hope so. He's kind of arrogant because he's super handsome. And then over here, We have Sunfire, who's got his starfish head, and he's got some fire on him as well. And he's just, you can see the back of his head a little bit too, and that's cool. And he's just flying off to do heroic stuff, probably to save the mutants stuck on Genosha. And then over here, let's do them both at once. We have Mohawk, Storm, and Old Man Logan. So if you buy these minis separately, there's slots for them in there. So again, these guys won't come in the box unless you add them there yourself. But there will be an empty spot for them. And that empty spot, don't feel alarmed, you weren't cheated. If you get this box and you find 2 empty slots, it's just where these guys belong. And they're friends, right? La, 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 la. That's how friends pose for pictures. There we go. They get along famously. And they're both great miniatures. And there's Weapon X, looking very pointy and naked and covered in wires and such. Being a Weapon X looks like it hurts. I would never want to go through what Wolverine went through, even though having his powers sure would be nice. And there's X-23 jumping away from an explosion like you do. She's got 2 claws on her hands, but she's also got claws on her feet, so she still ends up with the same amount of clawage, just in different spots. And then after her is Dazzler. I have taken Dazzler out of the box as well, but you don't have to worry about it because you will get Dazzler in here if you purchase it. She looks cool. Look at that smirk. She knows what she's doing. And here comes Pixie fluttering away on those lovely wings. And the way that they manage to get these miniatures to look like they're flying always impresses me. It's just always so much fun to see them in quote-unquote mid-flight. Like North Star here. Look at that. Kicking off on a blast of cold air. This whole bottom row is dedicated exclusively to Alpha Flight. There is Sasquatch, who is very chunky and heavy. And he is big and beautiful. Look at that. I can't wait to team him up with Ursa Major. I haven't played as Ursa Major yet, but those two need to team up. There's Puck. My gosh, that looks exactly like the trading card that I got with my dad. Hey guys, what's up? I'm just hanging on the ceiling. Look at that. Oh wait, I forgot. He's French Canadian, so it'd be more like, hey guys, what's up? I'm hanging from the ceiling. I wish I could speak French. There we go. We learn French in Canada up until grade 9, and then we stop. And I really wish I hadn't stopped because I want to be not just bilingual, but being multilingual would be great. And there's Guardian, Captain Generic. In fact, that was how I met my pal, the Meeple Monkey, was through his unboxing video of this. And that's a great base. I'm just noticing his base for the first time now. But he unboxed this and he couldn't remember some of these names. And he's like, Captain Generic? And I thought, that's it. That's what this character has to be from this point forward. In fact, some homebrewers should change his cards. So instead of saying Guardian, they say Captain Generic. That's what I want to see the homebrew community do. And there is Snowbird, the last miniature in the box, with her lovely, lovely wings. Incredible. So you have just seen an hour of me, pretty much, going through this box of goodies, this delicious giant box of toys. I love these Kickstarter boxes because you just add so much fun and playability to your game. Unfortunately, finding this on the aftermarket is going to set you back a lot. So hopefully this video can help you make an informed decision on whether or not this box is going to be worth what people are charging to pick it up. So as we close the box up and put everything away back from whence it came, we can go over the points value. Oh, and I think that's really cool that there's a tiny rivet in here, like a tiny dip, so that this can fit in there and that these can fit in here without overflow. That's just so thoughtful of Simon to do that. But now we can take a look at the points, how much this box is worth. And man, it's quite a lot of points. So let's take a look together. All right, that was a lot of miniatures I just threw at your face just now, and a lot of cards to boot. So this is obviously going to cost you a hell of a lot, especially for getting it on the secondary market. People are going to charge you through the nose. So I want to make sure you know whether or not it's worth it. Let's tally up all the totals of all the miniatures we saw, and see how many points in our random arbitrary point system that we do here you can get from this box. The Mutant Promos box contains 50 miniatures, which gives us 50 points. Then it has 7 special miniatures, and that totals out to a nice crisp 14 points. In the box, you'll receive 34 heroes, 15 villains, and 5 purple anti-heroes, and those total out to 15 points. So 50, 14, 34, 30, and 15 gives us a grand total of 143 points. Now, since this is the end of Season 2, and therefore, by extension, the end of our second little season of these Marvel United deep dives, it's time for some fun stuff. It's time to go back and look at everything we've touched so far and rank them in order of how many points of worthiness they're going to have. Obviously, you know what's going to be number 1 because we just talked about it, and that is an insane amount of points we just gave this box. That's how these Kickstarter promo boxes are going to be. There's nothing we can do about it. They're just glorious boxes of goodness. But we'll get the ranking going so you know, expansion-wise, what you're looking at in terms of how much greatness is packed into each one of these delightful little boxes. So, the grand tally so far of Seasons 1 and 2 of Marvel United will give you the following. Starting from the bottom are 3 boxes in total. The Black Panther box, Tales of Asgard, and Horsemen of the Apocalypse. Each of these boxes, when you apply our wacky rule system, is only worth 13 points. So, if you gotta skip on something, maybe these are the boxes to skip. Who knows, maybe you're the kind of person where you're like, hey, I only like Wakandans and Horsemen. In which case, yeah, then go nuts, get these expansions, don't let me stop you. The next box is X-Force, which gives you 14 points. Following that is Deadpool, with a crisp 14.5 points. But remember, Deadpool has a Kickstarter exclusive character, Lady Deadpool, which means if you only get the retail box, that gets bumped down to a 12.5. It actually gets bumped down to the lowest of the list total. That could be a tricky sticking point for some people, but that's the numbers for Deadpool. Next is another 3-way tie, Days of Future Past, Guardians of the Galaxy Remix, and Into the Spider-Verse. Those are all worth 15 points, putting them roughly in the middle of everything in terms of just bang for your buck. They're all good, solid expansions, and from here on out, they just get gooder and solider. Grammar be damned. All right, our next one is X-Men First Class. That is going to net you a cool 16.5 points. Initially, I slept on it. I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I picked it up because First Class rocks. Now, we have 2 in a row that have Kickstarter exclusive things, so check the back of the box when you pick these up. Blue Team and Gold Team. Blue Team is first. It's worth 18 points, unless you find only the retail version, in which case that gets bumped down to 16 points. Gold Team is worth 19 points, but that's only the Kickstarter version. The retail one is worth 17. Phoenix 5 and Sinister 6 are the next ones, and they are tied at 20 points each. Now, this is big, and I have to clarify, once again, talking about the Phoenix 5, I did not realize that all 5 of those villains could be played separately if you want. That is what bumped it up. Maybe someone out there has played them separately, and maybe that someone finds that when you play them separately, they're terrible, in which case you could pretty much say Phoenix 5 is worth less than Sinister 6, even though we have them tied here. I mean, at the end of the day, too, what's going to make Marvel fans more excited? Hey, I can face off against the Sinister 6 and Electro and Dr. Octopus, or hey, I can face off against Phoenix-possessed Colossus, right? It really depends on what kind of Marvel fan you are, but I'm pretty sure I know where the majority is leaning to. It still boggles my mind that Phoenix 5 is that high, but there we are. And then the Infinity Gauntlet takes the next spot with 21 points, just edged over because you get that nice shiny gauntlet and those sexy Infinity Stones in there. Following that is Fantastic Four with 24 big ones. That is a great expansion. The one we just talked about last week. Yeah, Fantastic Four expansion rocks. Don't sleep on that one. Get it. After that is just core boxes and promos. The season 1 core box comes next with 30 points. Then the X-Men core box tops that very much so with 35 points. After that is United Promos, and we're jumping all the way up to 103 smackaroos. And after United Promos, Mutant Promos just pushes the envelope, gives us even more. That's worth 143 points, as we've just seen today. And that, as it stands, is our deep dive rankings. Of course, this list will change once we've fluttered our way through season 3. And that's all that she wrote. And by she, I mean me. And by all I wrote, I mean this. Even though this is not technically all I've written, there's other stuff too, but this is the good stuff. Anyway, that'll do it for today here on Digital Charcuterie on another one of our Marvel United deep dives. Next time, we're going to delve into... I hesitate to call it season 2.5. I call it more like season 3 alpha, and that is Spider-Geddon, my friend. Spider-Geddon is the next box we are going to look at. Now, this week's going to be a little bit crazy for me because I am, in fact, starting school this week. I'm going back to school. Just call me Billy Madison over here. Because of that, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out the next deep dive to you in time for next Wednesday. So I'm not going to say for sure it's coming Wednesday, and I'm not going to say for sure it's not coming Wednesday. I'm just saying if it's late, the reason is probably because of homework. Homework is the thing that's back in my life. But anyway, no matter what, you will get that deep dive as soon as I can get it to you. Until then, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in here on Digital Charcuterie as we continue to make the wait for DC Superheroes United a little bit shorter and a whole lot sweeter. See you next time.